Hi everybody, what's going on? Welcome to Sit Down. I'm DJ Sixsmith, hanging out with Anna Todd. Anna, your work is in the movie theater with After. Congratulations.
Thank you. Good. Excited.
Yeah, it's a cool time. You dropped into the theater last night, got to see how people were reacting. So, I mean, it's just fascinating for you to see your work on the big screen, but also like how people are actually interacting with it. So how cool was that for you?
Yeah, it was so cool. I mean, they were, even just when we were walking in, people who were waiting for another screening, like immediately recognized us, started like screaming. And then we got in the theater and people were literally like sobbing. So it was really cool to be there with them on this like exciting thing, because they were already, the energy in the room was already so excited before they even realized anything was even happening.
And the awesome thing is that this hits all different ages. It's not just a young adult thing, like it's women in their 40s, it's guys that are coming through. And I'm sure it's awesome for you that you're hitting all these different age groups.
Yeah, it's been really great. Even since the trailer, I've had a lot of guys randomly reading it and being really into the story. So it's really cool. And I feel like it's a story for everyone. Love stories are always kind of general. Anybody can love them. It's so relatable. Even if you're not experienced that kind of love story, you still can relate to like leaving home for the first time, making friends at college for the first time, not fitting in for the first time, having your heart broken for the first time. So it's either nostalgia or like a longing for it.
Yeah, if you have a great relationship, cool, awesome. If you're struggling to find love, this is another way to get into that as well. So love is definitely a good one to get into. So why don't we talk about your background here? Take me all the way back. How did you get started as a writer? Who were some writers you looked to? How did this whole thing begin for you?
Most of the writers that I love the most are deceased for a long time. So when I was a teenager, I started reading classic novels. I've always been a reader, but I didn't really come from a place where we could afford to buy books and stuff. So I pretty much all of the books that you're forced to read in high school were my favorite books, because I got to like take them home and stuff. And didn't have to wait forever for the library. And I read and read and read. I've read, I don't even know how many books, but I was just an avid reader, never thought about writing. I wish I could say like, oh, it was always my dream since I was a child, but it just wasn't, to be honest. It was just something that I did randomly on a day. I started reading on Wattpad in like 2013. It seems so long ago now, it's crazy. And I was reading there for a few months and just consuming everything I could possibly read. And I got to a point where I felt like I'd read everything, which wasn't true, obviously, because there's millions of stories, but I couldn't find like what I was looking for. And I didn't really want to even read published books. I just wanted to read on Wattpad. I only wanted to read fan fiction. So then I was just like, oh, maybe I'll, write something, because on Wattpad, it's a serialized storytelling platform. So the good and bad thing that I love and hate is that you have to wait for people to update. And most of the people on there are just writing for passion, and they have day jobs or night jobs and families or school. So it can be torturous. It's really fun, but it's like torture. And I just thought, oh, well, maybe I'll write a chapter of something. And I didn't have any followers. I didn't have a Twitter account. I didn't have any way to think anybody was going to read it. And I wrote the first chapter without any plan for the story whatsoever in my head. I just was like, oh, he's going to have tattoos and she's going to go to college today. And I had no idea what was going to happen. I feel like, and maybe over time my memory has like created this, but I feel like I knew I wanted it to be kind of that classic age-old love story that we've seen a million times, but just in a modern way. And the characters are really into Pride and Prejudice, so I knew it would they knew there were going to be bookworms and things, but I didn't plan anything, and I just wrote that first chapter, and it felt like that was fun, and then I wrote another one and another one.
Well, I think it's cool because you have the foundation of the classics that you read in high school, but then you're putting it into 2019. You have the digital age also, and even you saying like, I'm dying and waiting for people to write, like, think about in the past, you wouldn't have even had access to this,
no
it wasn't
way.
Even a thing. And we're just so dying for that instantaneous moment where we can see somebody's next chapter. And that's like the awesome thing about the world that we live in right now.
It's literally like that notification. I would just be like, run right to it. And that was part of the rush while writing it too, is that I knew, well, toward the end when I had people actually reading it, I knew the moment I updated it would be immediate like comments, and I can literally read live what people are feeling while they're on that specific line of the chapter. Because on Wattpad you can literally comment on each paragraph. So I knew like when I was writing it, there would be like at the end of a sentence, I'd be like, oh, they're going to like that, or they're going to be mad, or this or that. And then I could get immediate feedback. And then while they were reacting to that chapter, I would just start the next one.
So how do you balance what people will like versus what I'm trying to do with this story?
I feel like this is a secret, but not really, but I kind of like making my readers really mad.
You like to poke the bear.
Yes, I love it. And I feel like the times when they were happy, I was like, oh, I'm bored. And then I would do something to make them crazy. I loved, even when people write, I was talking about this morning, it's funny because even when people are so mad, it's like my favorite part when they say like, I'm never reading your books again. And then they all come back and be like, I'm sorry, hi. And so it's like, I love that evoking emotion. I would much rather have people be mad that I'm not doing what they want. And it's even more fun because then I get to see what they expect to happen, and I'd make sure I don't do it. And so there were times where they would, especially with the characters because they're so back and forth in their relationship, I would push it to the extreme with one, and they would all start like turning on this character, and then I would do it the other way. So it was like they were just getting drugged back and forth through this relationship live and feeding back to me so I could just make it more dramatic.
It's fascinating because you'll never meet some of these people, but these relationships you build have been really important to your career and really important to the content that you're producing as well. So I'm sure it's pretty interesting for you when you think about it.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of them are still around. I mean, there's more of them now, but some of the people who literally read from the beginning
like the day ones 6 years ago still there?
They're still like, I'll go to France and some of them will be there. Or I'll go to, I have some of them that are like real life friends now that we literally see each other all the time. Yeah. And a group of my friends just came to Paris to see the movie because we had this, well, it's only 2 times now, tradition for 50 Shades Freed. We all went to Paris for Erica, Ariel, James, and then they all came for me for this one. So it's really cool to have that community that I've had for a while, and now it's just building. But it's cool to see like the OG people or people that will just post a picture of them when they're like 15 and now they're like graduating college and they're like holding after them now. So it's really cool.
That's awesome. Okay, so you're doing the whole fan fiction thing, you're interacting with people. How do you take the next step to publishing multiple books?
So then Wattpad contacted me. Before that I was getting some random messages from people who were saying they were agents, but I just remember being like, oh, I'm not answering that, like totally just ignoring it.
Well, what were you doing for work at this point?
I was going to school full time just to have money, to be honest. Like I was going online and I was raising my son who has special needs, and my husband was in the Army. So the only way, you can't really work because I can't afford health or childcare, and then he's gone all day. So it's like I just went to school, to be honest, to have a paycheck.
I totally get that.
And luckily, I'm like, knock on wood, I was good at it, so it was easy and kind of fun for me. And I was babysitting people's kids and doing random things
whatever you had to do at that
whatever
point.
I had to do. And then I would just write during the day. My son was little then, so it was much easier to be on a computer most of the day. And then Wattpad contacted me and said, you know, would you like to have a Skype call? And at this point, there was no information about me whatsoever. My first name, my age, nothing. And I was like, I bet they think I'm like 14. Like I'm positive. And when I tell them like I forget, like 23, 24.
Were they shocked?
No, they were like, we actually were totally expecting that because of the way you write.
Gotcha.
And I was like, oh, thanks. But I was really, I remember being like nervous, and I don't know, it seems so long ago now, and then they said, we have a lot of interest from publishers, and they, Wattpad kind of acts as, it's a new thing. They're kind of acting as agents, but not. Like they have a STARS program, and now they have Wattpad Studios where they're producing movies that they get from their site. So they're kind of, well, they're definitely shaking up every industry, and I love it. But they were like, we can introduce you to these publishers if you want to go to New York. And I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Like, I'm down. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because I remember being more excited about being in publishing houses than like being there to like sell my work. I remember literally like taking pictures in hallways and stuff and being like, this book is here, oh my God, this person was probably in this hallway. As a book reader, it was like I don't even remember feeling like, oh, I'm going to be an author. I just was like, oh my God, Cassandra Clare is published by these people. I have to be published by these people. And then I met with a couple different editors at big publishing houses, and I knew immediately that this guy named Adam Wilson was like, he had already published fan fiction. He just got my voice. I felt like I could trust him to not just tear apart the story, because that's a lot of my friends who wrote fan fiction and wrote online. That was like one of their warnings was like, be careful of the editor, because they will take the story apart, which did not happen to me at all. I just got help and like guidance on becoming a better writer from him. But then published with Simon & Schuster. And then we had, because it was already written on Wattpad, we just edited it so fast to like put them out, because I didn't want to have like a year between each book. And I love that when authors don't do that. I hate waiting like so long. So we crammed out a whole bunch of edits and published back to back. And then I started doing book tours, and here I am.
This thing really blew up. I mean, it's awesome to see. And you mentioned something in how going from fan fiction to a book, people can be a little bit leery because they don't want their stuff to be messed with. Same sort of thing with a book to a movie, because people will say the book's better than the movie.
Yeah.
And I'm sure for you, when you're thinking about, okay, like there's TV shows going on, there's movies, I want to get into this, but I'm also really cautious because this is my baby here. So how did you deal with that whole balance?
I was extremely involved, to be honest. So I got kind of lucky. I have friends who were either not involved or really involved, and I was like just literally on set every single day. Was a producer, helped with every casting. I was in every casting meeting, watched every single audition. Chose some wardrobe, chose hairstyle. So
that's the way it should be done.
I had
you
so
know the story.
much creative control that the only kind of things that we would not even really disagree, but just like discuss were timing things.
Right.
And the company that I was working with, at first I had a big studio behind me, and every meeting I got more terrified because I had this one meeting with this writer who's a great writer, but she literally said, I think Hardin should be a DJ. And I was like, what? What do you mean a DJ? What do you mean? Does that mean something I don't know? What are you talking about? And it was just weird the more it got changed. But then Jennifer Gibgot, who's a producer on the film, and she's been attached since day one. She's like such an after advocate. And she was like, we have to get these rights back, and we have to go to a smaller place where we can make an indie film and choose a director and do basically what we want. So we did that, and then we sold to a distributor after. So we had like...
Smart move.
Yeah.
Because if you go to a big studio, they just make it the way they want to make it. They're thinking box office, they're thinking ticket sales. They're not really focused on the story.
And they're like, DJs are a thing. And I'm like, what? This is a thing. I've sold millions of books. Right. What are you talking about? Like, it was really strange. I feel like I will definitely always do this path, especially now with after.
Yeah, if you fundamentally change the character, then the people who know the character aren't going to be in on the movie.
Yeah,
You know, it's just a weird
it's like
thing.
something about it clearly struck with people. So why change that? Of course, we have to change some things because it's an adaptation, but changing like from him going from a book lover and a bookworm to a DJ changes his whole character.
Yeah, that's not him.
So it's like, why would, if you want that, just write your own DJ movie? Like, I don't understand.
I don't think there's a huge market for DJ movies.
No, I mean, Zac Efron did it, and
that.
it like, you know, it was good, but it didn't really land. So it's like, if Zac Efron can't do it, we can't. So no, please no. Yeah.
So when you think about the whole movie process, what was the most interesting thing, maybe the most surprising thing? What did you learn about everything?
I learned so much. It was so fascinating to me. I learned that I sound like narcissist now, but I'm a really good producer. And I learned really fast, and I loved it. I really, really loved it, and I cannot wait to make more films, even if they're nothing to do with my own books. I learned a lot about adapting, and I feel like I spent so much time like younger watching Harry Potter and being like, well, that professor is this and blah, blah, blah. And with 50 Shades being like, well, this should have happened. And with Twilight, but then now it's like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Because it's literally like it's timing. It's most of the changes that we had to make were all timing. It was like, you can't fit in a book, there's 5 different storylines going on at the same time. You can't do that in a movie, otherwise it's confusing. And we had to cut a lot of just like meat, but I feel like we still got a good film, and it was fun for me to take like a puzzle almost and make it a good film, but also keep the readers in mind. But there were times where I literally had to like shut off my like author creator brain and just focus on it being a good film, because there were things that I knew the fans wanted that when we tried them, and we tried pretty much on Wattpad you can literally get like data on the most commented, most reread chapters. So we got to see like literally data driven who loved the most, like what they loved the most. So we tried to hit all of those beats, but sometimes in a book, if someone's like, oh, we're a beautiful chaotic mess, you're like, oh, but if someone says it, you're like, what?
Yeah,
what?
Like that doesn't
it's
really
creepy.
resonate.
Yeah, it's not the same. So we change things, like now in the film, it's like, I'm a mess, we're both a mess. And it's like, oh, that's normal, not like, so there were things that I knew the fans would be like, where is this or where is that? But it had to be a good film that kind of stands on its own as well.
No doubt. And that's 2019 in a nutshell, data-driven movies.
Yes.
Like that wasn't a thing 5 years ago that people were thinking about. That's great that you guys did that.
It was it's so, even for publishing, it's so great to like go in and find the most commented on specific lines. And even for me, things that were resonating with people. Like when I started talking more about Tessa's like body and her flaws and stretch marks and acne, they're like some of the most commented on parts of the book. And then I was like, oh, I have this audience that's resonating with this, and this is making them feel more normal and feel connected to the tissue of the story. So then I could not shy away from that stuff, where sometimes you never know how it's going to go, and it's literally data, so it's perfect.
And the vulnerability of those characters is so critical, especially for the young adults who are going to get into this, because they're going through a lot of stuff in high school. And the mental health thing is so much bigger than it was even when we were in high school. And to hit on that and body image, like your movie, your book, like that's perfect for this time right now for these kids. Yeah,
and there's so many different themes. Like I've had people that literally come to signings and say, like, I've started therapy now, I've stopped drinking, I forgive my parents, I understand my mom more, or I want to be a better person, like all these little things. Or this one girl in Spain had her whole family come to a book signing. At first I was a little scared, I didn't know what was happening, and she had just gotten out of a clinic for an eating disorder, and one of her roommates gave her the book when she was reading, and a combination of timing and her developing friendships there and everything, but she funneled it kind of through after. So she brought her entire family, like grandparents, everyone. Wow. And we were all, this is probably like the first time I told it without crying, but we were all just like sobbing. And then to make it even more kind of sad, but now I feel like I need to mention it, but when I went to Brazil, a family came and their daughter literally had passed away, like with the book on her. And they all came with the books. And it was like, at first I didn't know how to feel, because I knew that they needed to like meet me for something, but I didn't know how to. It was like at a credit book signing, but looking back, I mean, it wasn't that long ago, but it literally was like, that is the height of everything that you could possibly, to have people that connected to something that was like their kind of last send off to her.
Absolutely. I mean, your work is touching people all over the world at their highest moments, at their lowest moments, and that's just your stuff cutting through when we're in a world with a bunch of different things, so you should really take that and be proud of it.
Thank you.
So when people check out the movie, lots to unpack there, but what do you want them to walk away thinking? I
mean, the first thing, honestly, I want entertainment. I mean, I just want people to be entertained. If you've never heard of the books, don't want to read them, that's fine, but hopefully you're entertained. I want people to have a nostalgic feeling or a longing, no matter what age group you are, where you're from. Especially with the film, we've made a lot of changes for diversity, because when you're writing fan fiction, you have a model of what people look like, so you don't really change it. But then looking at a college campus, we were like, this isn't realistic. So we made it just everybody can do better, so we did, and I hope that they feel connected to someone in the story, depending on who it is. I don't know, I always, when people say, what do you want them to take away, I hope that everyone takes away something different, like depending on how they're feeling and what they're going through in their life, but I mostly just want them to be entertained and leave not too happy because of the way it ends, but happy and satisfied.
Well, why don't you tell everybody where they can check out the movie?
In theaters all over the world. That's really cool to say. But please check it out this weekend or next or both. Take all your friends and family, and hope you love it as much as I do.
All right, there you have it. That's Anna Todd. Anna, thanks so much. We'll see you next time here on The Sit Down.